My travels have brought me to Lynchburg, Virginia, and a home owned by Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers. A home we know today as Poplar Forest. Starting at the visitor center, I walk onto the property. The first thing I notice is this large earthen mound. My first thought is Indian mound, but an Indian mound it is not. It's one of Jefferson's architectural ideas. In 1812, a large sunken lawn area was excavated behind the home off to the right. The soil was piled to form two mounds, the one you just saw and the other in the distance on the opposite side of the home. A view of the back of the home from the sunken yard that Jefferson created. The large, flat lawn framed the view out the back of the house and served, among other things, as a bowling green. This structure, out just beyond the back lawn, looks like it might have been a garden, perhaps a kitchen garden for growing food, herbs, and flowers for use in the home. This is the service wing here on the east side of the home. This is where food was stored, prepared, and cooked. Linens and clothes were laundered here. Plans show that one of the rooms was used as a smokehouse to cure meats. One could also find offices and even guest accommodations in the wing. Archaeological excavations continue in these spaces to better understand how they were being used back in Jefferson's day. A kitchen area. Thomas Jefferson considered Poplar Forest a retreat. It's located in Lynchburg, Virginia, some 60 miles southwest of his primary residence of Monticello over in Charlottesville. Thomas Jefferson was one of America's founding fathers. He was very involved with politics when the American colonies began to revolt against and eventually gained independence from Great Britain. He was also the third U.S. president. Here's a small loom, which tells me at least some fabrics were likely woven here on premises. A spinning wheel. You're looking at the home's south portico, which faced out onto the large sunken back lawn. Jefferson and his wife Martha inherited this land in 1773 from his father-in-law. To the Jeffersons and to the previous owners as well, this was a revenue-producing farm, or perhaps plantation is a better word, managed and worked by a staff of stewards, overseers, and slaves. Crops of tobacco and wheat produced a profit in most years, but what it wasn't is a home. The roof of the service wing looks like it was constructed to provide some outdoor space for entertainment and relaxation. In fact, none of the previous owners chose to make Poplar Forest their home. All of this took place on the eve of the American Revolution. I pan right toward the north and the front lawn of the formal entrance of the home. Some of the outbuildings on the east side of the property, perhaps old servant or staff quarters. Not being in the best of shape, work's been done to stabilize the structure to prevent further deterioration. Jefferson was deeply involved in politics, leaving little time for Poplar Forest. One of the two original privies. And this, well, that's anybody's guess. Definitely a foundation from a long-gone structure. Hostilities broke out in 1775 and raged for 6 years before throwing the British Army off the continent. This is an area that was known to be where some of the slaves lived on the property. In this wooded area, the remains of slaves are believed to be buried, unmarked, unknown, but no longer forgotten. The timbers show the silhouette of a slave cabin atop its original site. Excavations continue from time to time in this area, which reveal more about the slaves and how their lives unfolded here. I've made my way to the home's main entrance. In a minute, we're expecting to be taken inside for a tour. This is the formal entrance. It's where visitors would be greeted as they arrived to see the Jeffersons and brought through this entrance. Entering the home, I look right into the northwest chamber, which has been restored to look much as it did when Jefferson lived here. Here's a floor plan of the home, built in the form of an octagon. We came in through the main entrance here, looked right into the northwest chamber. In a minute, I'll go left into the northeast chamber, then into the girls' rooms here. There's a 20-foot by 20-foot square dining room in the middle of the home with an overhead skylight. A parlor here, which looks out onto the back lawn. Finally, Jefferson's bedchambers here. 2 stairwells here and here for easy access to the service wing on the level below. I counted 9 fireplaces. This is the northeast chamber. This partially restored area allows you to see just how the home was constructed. Here you can see the vertical wall studs, the space between filled with brick masonry, wooden lath nailed over the wall studs, a scratch coat of plaster over the lath, and a finish layer of plaster on top. This is the girls' room and pantry. The arrows in the fireplace point to evidence indicating there was a fireback installed. A fireback is a heavy iron casting that's installed on the back wall of the fireplace. It protected the brick, but it also helped to radiate heat out into the room. Moving into the central dining room. This too was finished much the way it was in Jefferson's time, with a skylight above in the ceiling for natural lighting. Unfortunately, Martha Jefferson took ill in 1783 and died. Thomas Jefferson immersed himself for the next 24 years into serving his new country. From 1785 to 1809, he served as Minister to France, the Secretary of State, the Vice President, and finally as the 3rd President of the United States. It was in 1806 when Jefferson began seeing Poplar Forest as a possible retreat. He had just started his 2nd term as president. I think it likely he was preparing a place where he could get away from the very public life he had been living so far. Construction began at Poplar Forest in 1806. Jefferson's presidency ended in 1809, and that's when he began more frequent visits to Poplar Forest. His stays range from a few days to a month, sometimes more. Moving into the parlor, Thomas made regular visits to Poplar Forest for the next 14 years. His last visit being in 1823 at the age of 80. He died 3 years later in 1826, but not before he transferred the property to his grandson, Francis Epps, and his wife, Mary. The Epps lived there until 1828, when they sold the property out of the Jefferson family. This is a polygraph writer, which Jefferson had particular interest in. Perhaps this was the first version of the infamous auto pen. For the next 156 years, the property remained in private hands. The grounds and buildings experienced fires, numerous alterations, and many changes over time. That was until 1984, when the Corporation for Jefferson's Poplar Forest purchased the land and remaining structures. Since then, this nonprofit has worked to reacquire some of the original plantation land and continues to restore the home and surrounding structures. Now, into Jefferson's bedroom. It's only been recently, in April of 2023, the restoration of the main home was completed. Today, it's a National Historic Landmark and operated as a museum. Now back outside to the home's front entrance. Archaeological research continues all over the property. So much has been lost to time, it's likely the work will continue for years to come. This property warrants a return trip from time to time, as more light is cast upon the life and times of not only Thomas Jefferson, but of all the people that called Poplar Forest their home. Until the next time, remember, life is a journey. Enjoy the ride, and thanks for watching.